Hi, I'm Alison Warner, founder of Evolve and Grow and author of Build and Grow. Welcome to the Evolve and Grow podcast show, where I share lots of useful tips and advice to tradespeople who are looking to move off the tools and grow a really successful business. So today's show is looking at mental health within the construction industry. Mental health at one time was perhaps a taboo subject, but thanks to changes, perhaps as recently as the last 5 years, I think we're all starting to talk about this in a different way. The fact is we are talking about it, whereas before it was perhaps brushed under the carpet. So I'm especially delighted to have as a guest on the show today, Bill Hill, who is the CEO of the Lighthouse Construction Charity, which has been established since 1956. To support the industry. Bill's background includes 20 years experience holding senior positions with organisations such as Hewlett-Packard and Sage PLC. He has a passion for customer service and a wealth of experience across the major business disciplines of marketing, sales, operations and finance. He trained as an accountant and holds diplomas from INSEAD, Cranfield University, as well as CIMA qualifications, and most recently qualified as a mental health first aid instructor. He joined the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity in 2013, and since then has played a major role in significantly growing the profile and significance of its charitable work within the construction community. The charity now operates a 24/7 industry helpline. It has developed a construction-focused health and wellbeing app and plays a central role in building mental health, the construction industry's key mental health awareness and support program. So welcome, Bill. Thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you very much for that. That's a great introduction.
So would you like to kick off just by telling us a little bit about yourself and also the charity?
Well, I think you've told everything about me in that introduction, to be fair. So I've spent a lot of time, obviously, in the private sector. And when I managed to get a chance to get out, I've been working now. This is my second charity that I've been working with. And I've just really enjoyed using my business skills learned in the private sector to put into charities and then help them along. And the Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity is one. It's a little bit special because I was born and brought up in a lighthouse off the west coast of Scotland. And when I saw this job coming up, it says Lighthouse Construction Industry Charity, I said, well, my old man was a lighthouse keeper. This has got my name all over it. So I went for an interview and wore my lighthouse cufflinks, and they said, "You've got the job. That's it. The company's done it." But I've really enjoyed working with the construction industry. It was a new area for me, and it's been a great learning curve for me as well, working within the industry and working for this charity, turning it around and pushing it into the 21st century.
Okay. And what inspired you in particular, other than the fact that the commonality of growing up in a lighthouse, what inspired you to work for this charity in particular?
Well, I think it's more about giving back. I spent a lot of time in industry and in the private sector, and I had actually been doing the usual stuff you do when you're working in there, is giving back, doing some charity events and things like that, raising money for charity whilst you're in the corporate environment. And so when I get a chance to get out of the industry, I said, well, okay, this is something that I can give back. And I didn't know anything about construction. I always get somebody in to do stuff. So for me, it was learning about a new industry. And one thing I do love is learning. And learning about this industry has been really good fun and very enjoyable. And it's got its problems, and I do enjoy trying to solve some of the problems as well. So it's been a great move.
What were some of the surprises for you coming from such a different background into construction?
I think the biggest difference for me is my background was in technology companies. And technology companies very much took on board the whole change in the way and the culture change that needed to take place in industry way back in the 80s. I think I did my first diversity training in the early 90s in America. So the technology industries were very early to take on these major changes that needed to be done to make industry better. So coming into construction, I found that they were certainly, I think I can use a euphemism, they were not quite so advanced in taking on these soft skill management challenges. And construction in particular has its own issues and its own makeup that makes it quite difficult to make the changes as fast as we would like to make them.
Right. Okay. And so what have been the key changes that you've made since 2013?
The biggest thing was the charity itself was a benevolent fund. So it was set up way back in 1956 to basically look after construction workers' families that had fallen into poverty as a consequence of breadwinner, either through an accident or an illness or a fatality. They'd lost their financial income, and it was there to help them get back on their feet. And at that time, in 1956, there was around about 200 fatalities a year in construction. But health and safety has worked miracles here, and especially on the safety side, that has been cut down, quite considerably. But it's still every year we lose 30 to 40 people through fatalities on site, which is still, 30 to 40 people too many. In fact, this year it's 40 this year, which is the highest it's been for a few years, which is not good. It's not good, and any death on site is a major investigation. To see what's happened, and it's obviously a family that is lost a loved one.
Absolutely. And so it was set up more as a financial support, you say, and then at some point it's moved into the mental health space as well.
Yeah, when I came aboard, we looked and said, okay, we're all set up here for giving just money, giving money out, and giving money out is only but part of solving a problem. So when we started looking at the major issues, and this was the thing that we did through some research as well, and when you find out that that there are some significant issues, like there are fatalities on site every year in construction in the UK. There's about 2,000 accidents where somebody is incapacitated in such a way that they can't actually return to work. There's major ongoing, long-standing cases of work-related illness as well, through cancer, etc. But the two that really stood out for me were the two ones that relate to mental ill health, which is stress, depression, or anxiety accounts for a fifth of all work-related illness. And the one that just hit like a steam train was that every single working day in the UK, we lose 2 construction workers to suicide. And that's the thing that just said, we need to do something about this. We are morally obligated to do something about this. We need to get the industry to really get behind this and do something about recognising the people that are struggling. And we put in place some other elements in the services in the charity to help that whole process. But basically, we're working very hard with the industry to push that agenda.
And so would you like to just share what are the key things that you're doing as a charity to address mental health in particular?
Well, our mantra is that no construction worker or their family should be alone in a crisis. That is our mantra. That's the big picture we're trying to get out there, and we're trying to surround anybody with everything possible to be able to get a connection, to get them to talk and to seek help. The very first thing is the 24/7 helpline that we introduced, I think it was 4 years ago. So it's available free of charge for anybody in the country who's in construction can phone that number, and there'll be somebody there on the phone to help them out. And it's not just being able to help them. They're all mental health first aid trained, so they can help them out through those sort of type issues. But we'll also look at their not only their mental well-being, their physical well-being, but also their financial well-being. And we've got professional caseworkers that sit behind that telephone line as well, that are like a little angel on their shoulders to help them through their problems and get them to a better place. We developed a little app as well, which is it covers everything. coming from the technology background, it was just a lovely little project to do for the charity. But it's a downloadable app, rather interestingly called the Construction Industry Helpline app. It took our marketing team a long time to come up with that. But it does what it says on the tin. And MD in Construction can download that app, and it's absolutely packed full of information and places to go to get help, self-coping strategies, learning strategies. Again, it's based around those three pillars, which is financial well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being. So the whole app is based around those three areas, and it's got lots and lots of information. The third area that we're working on is to try to get every single site in the country should have a mental health first aider or a mental health champion, as well, somebody physically on site who has been trained in some of the techniques to help people and signpost people to get other help and help them through that process. And then on the other side as well, we're now working on a massive injection of proactive training through online training courses, free again, trying to make everything as free as possible. So it removes any barrier for anybody to get access to these things to give them help.
I see. And how is the charity funded?
Very interesting. It has been funded for many a year by events. So we've got 21 volunteer regions around the country, volunteer lighthouse clubs, who are just a collective group of people who come together and put on an event to raise some money. And we've got a small national team that put on some big national events. As you can imagine, at the moment, our event program has been absolutely decimated as a consequence of COVID-19. So at the moment, all our events have been cancelled this year. So we've had to look at other ways of raising funds, and basically I've been doing a Billy Geldof and phoning up companies and saying, "Give us your money, please." And we put a family crisis appeal together, and we've raised just over $500,000 now, but I'm trying to get to $1 million to see us through this year and next year. And then hopefully our events will be able to switch back on again and bring as the income coming through.
Interesting. Well done on managing to raise that amount of money. And that kind of nicely takes me to my next question as to what other impacts have you seen from COVID-19?
Well, again, this has come at a time when we've lost 50% of our funding. Our helpline call volume has gone up 55%. And that came in March when the lockdown hit hard to everybody. Everybody was really worried about, and the calls were coming in mainly with a financial angle to them, like just people say, "How am I going to cope?" Because again, this industry, as you know, Alison, is predominated by the small businesses. 92% of all the businesses in construction are under 10 people. So there's a massive number of small businesses, and a lot of those are self-employed as well. So there's a massive amount, I think over 50, 51, 52% of the working population is either self-employed, agency workers, or they're on 0-hour contracts. So you can imagine what happens when somebody switches off the tap of finance to them. Then a lot of those individuals are living with their families almost on a week-by-week basis. So if you cut off a week's wages, then they hurt badly. So the phone started ringing red hot straight after that, and we started giving people grants to help them to pay their utility bills, to put food on the table, and make sure the rent was paid. Because what also happened at the same time, there was a very long lead time into getting universal credit as well. So there was something like an 8 to 10 week delay in getting your universal credit through. So we were helping those people get through that time period before the state took over and managed to help out. But it was a very stressful time as well, because again, we had a poor lady phoned in, and she was absolutely distraught. And this is the thing that gets me. It gets me so frustrated is that she phoned in, and her husband came home he'd been something like 20 years in the trade, went upstairs and didn't come back down. And leaving her with a family, 3 kids. And you know, what frustrates me is, one, the good news was that she knew, she found out our number. We're helping her now. But the not so good news is that person, that man who took his own life, did not know to call us. And I'm not saying that we could have changed the outcome of what happened, but gosh, we'd have made a damn good try at changing it, because given access to help, we could have helped him through it. And he was in financial difficulty. I'm not saying that was the reason why, because we'll never know the reason why, but it probably was a major contributory factor.
I'm sure.
And again, with the industry, you know, 86% of the population in construction being male, there's some very unhelpful sort of masculine stoic beliefs inside the individuals that they won't ask for help. You know, and this is the big thing we've got to break down and work through that whole culture within the industry to change it, because that's the only way we're going to make the breakthroughs.
Yes, absolutely. And so my next question is around the reasons, in your opinion, for the industry having a record of poor mental health. Obviously, as we've just discussed there, finance can be a big source of stress. What sort of other things do you see?
Well, there's a whole host of other things, and that may be peculiar to other industries, but in our industry, finance is a big thing. There's late payments of individuals. There's long hours, job uncertainty when you're running a short-term contract or an agency. You can be dropped at a moment's notice as well. Working away from home is another one. Some of the bigger projects, you've got some people, away on these big infrastructure projects where you're away from home for periods of time, which, you get a relationship breakdown as a consequence of that as well, which is not good. The culture, alcohol, all these things, and social isolation away from home. And again, one I mentioned there is these unhelpful masculine stoic beliefs as well, and in that sort of the lack of that help-seeking behaviour. Sometimes the conditions when you are staying away from home are not wonderful. You might be staying in not very nice digs or maybe something like a caravan sometimes, and away from home working. So you've got all this going into to affect your overall well-being, which is not good.
And how do you think, in your opinion, we can start to change, as you say, this stoicness of that unfortunately some men feel unable to, or see it as a sign of weakness perhaps, to talk about how they're feeling if they're struggling? How do we start to change that in society?
Well, I think you've seen a big change coming through in recent years as well. It's at every level, in the media, within the royal family, everywhere you're seeing a major drive to change that whole culture. But within construction, again, I think that there just needs to be a stronger drive, because it is so male dominated. What would be wonderful, I think, would be more women in construction. I think that would help a lot. To try and get some more balance. All the working patterns and the protocols have been changed to accommodate a male or female working in any environment. There's no reason why it can't happen, but again, the industry needs to change to make it more accommodating as well. But I think that would make quite a big difference. And also what the things that we are trying to do within the industry, these mental health first aiders, mental health champions, doing Toolbox Talks, and really going through, and I've done so many Toolbox Talks with groups, large groups, and giving men in particular permission to talk about subjects that they haven't talked about with each other, and said, right, let's talk to your neighbour about this. It's trying to get them to stop talking about it. When they've actually said, "Oh, actually, this is okay," and it is okay to talk about these things, because what you find out when you talk to somebody else is you're not alone. somebody else is getting the same, and you're not solving the problem. You're just knowing that you're not alone with the problem, because other people have got the same type of problem, and that in itself gives some relief. So it's about driving those initiatives through every part, and in the smaller companies as well. I think it's more difficult because they don't have resources to be able to drive some of these things, but that's where our charity comes in, and we can help small companies. We can give them these tools. We can give them free access to these online courses that can help them and build some of the soft skills into management as well, which I think is vitally important, because if you don't have the soft skills in the management process, it's very difficult to get the full support for the programs and the initiatives to drive through.
And that's definitely what we see within Evolve and Grow. It's the lack of access to that kind of training, and then the business owner struggles with, as you say, the softer skills or perhaps the financial management. You mentioned there about Toolbox Talks. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we created a site, myself and a few other sort of people in some of the major contractors, Lend-Lease, Mace, etc. And along with the CITB, got together as a volunteer group of volunteers. And we put together this website called Building Mental Health. And in that, we put a framework together and said, here's a 5-step framework that any company of any size can do to improve the culture, to support a good mental well-being in their organisation. And the very first thing is to sign a charter saying, you as the manager of this company or the owner of this company, sign a charter to say that you're going to make mental health a priority in the workplace. And it's as simple as that. They can download it free of charge, they sign it, send it back to us. We put their logo up on the website saying this company has signed the charter. And if that's all they do, it's a waste of time, because that doesn't do anything. They can put it up in the reception area, but if they don't do the next step, at least, then they're going to. The next step is say, well, every employee in your company and every subcontractor that you bring on that site should have access to an employee assistance program, and an app to help them. And if you haven't got a private scheme that you can share with your subcontractors or employees, then use the charities one. We've got a helpline, which is like a basic employee assistance program, free of charge. And you've also got an app free of charge. So you can get to step 1 and step 2 very quickly in that process. Step 3 is a Toolbox Talk. And the Toolbox Talk is very, we put together, I think it's about 10 or 15 slide presentation with a script on it, which is about getting a group of people in a room and somebody with decent people management skills being able to deliver that presentation. And it's about starting the conversation. It's about getting people talking about some of these issues that they have never talked about before with each other, because that group talk is very powerful, very powerful. And that's that is downloadable free of charge from the Building Mental Health site as well. So step 1, 2, 3, no money. It's good. Step 4, we then saying, okay, you want to go on to step 4 in this, then you probably need to put your hand in your pocket. But it is subsidised because the CITB, the Construction Industry Training Board, subsidises this training. It's a half-day awareness training for anybody who's got any people management responsibility. It's about mental health first aid, England. It's their course. It's a half-day awareness course, and it's very good for opening managers' eyes to it. And if the company is CITB registered, they don't have to be a levy payer. All they have to be is CITB registered, and they get funding back for putting people on that course. And then the final step, step 5, is getting yourself a mental health first aider, which is a 2-day course. We're looking for volunteers from any companies or whatever to come through that course. And again, that's subsidised by CITB as well to get them through that 2-day. And that 2-day course will give that individual some extra skills and some capability to help people and recognise people that are struggling, help them immediately, and then get them signposted to get extra help somewhere else as well. So we put that 5-step plan together. Very, very basic plan, but I say the first 3 steps. If you can't get the first 3 steps done, it doesn't cost money. It just costs a bit of energy. Then you should get to step 3 pretty quick. Step 4 and 5, you have to think about.
The people who facilitate those Toolbox Talks, are they people who work for the Lighthouse Charity?
No, we are advocating the exact opposite. Is that, again, we maybe we might facilitate one just so that somebody else could pick it up. But I think it's far more powerful if the leaders in an organization actually facilitate it, because it shows that they're buying into the process. And I think that's vitally important. Getting a stranger to come in, it then looks like a tick box. Okay, I've ticked up. This bloke came in last week and he fixed our mental health tick. Oh, it's your company that needs to fix the culture in your company. It's not. So you'll never be able to employ an outside consultant or any other body to come into your company, your culture, and fix it. You've got to take that on, that responsibility yourself to do it. Admittedly, you might need some help to get your first couple under the belt, but it should be your own culture. And if everybody, as they walks the walk and talks the talk, then it should actually permeate through the whole organisation. And I think it's more useful if you get your own people to take on this as well.
Yeah, sure. Interesting. We were talking earlier, weren't we, about the difference between mental health and mental well-being. What have you learned about those two things since joining the charity?
Yeah, I think just the whole thing about mental health, when somebody talks about mental health, immediately they think about people with diagnosable illness. And then that's not what this is about. The people with diagnosable illness are a very small number of the people that we would be looking at here. And what we're really looking at is mental well-being. Again, our belief is that mental well-being is a responsibility of the company and the culture and the way they work and the way they look after the people. That's absolutely within their realm of responsibility. Mental illness is somebody with a diagnosable illness and problem, and that's the state's responsibility. That the state and the national health system, etc., should be looking after those people. The companies are secondary to that. They've got to make sure that they abide by the law and the statutes, etc., that said that somebody has got a disability, and mental illness is a disability. It's seen as such, and it should be an equal employer. So they should have things in place that they can actually employ and look after people with mental illness. So I see those two as quite different, and it's so easy to think, oh my goodness, when you talk about mental health, it's a big spectrum. The vast majority of that spectrum is mental well-being. The small part of it is mental illness, because everybody has mental health. Not everybody's got mental illness. Yeah.
So that's a good way of putting it, and a good distinction to make. And I talk about this in my book. Every quarter, without exception, the construction industry has the highest number of insolvencies in the UK, regardless of the economic climate. Do you see a link between that and some of the challenges that you see?
Oh, undoubtedly, there's must be a high correlation between somebody in financial stress and somebody having mental stress as well, without a doubt. I mean, you don't need to do a huge analysis on that. I mean, to work that out. I mean, yourself, if you've got a bit, your finances are getting really tight or whatever, it does stress you out quite a bit. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? And I say, if you're with somebody who's a sole trader or somebody who is living for project to project, and suddenly that project stops, which a lot of them did very recently, and they're only really restarting again now. That puts you under immense pressure and stress. You get your rent, mortgage, food on the table, everything to do. So it's massive. A huge correlation between financial stress and mental stress.
And in terms of business owners, I mean, it's interesting. I would say pretty much every client we work with, financial literacy is one of the key objectives that they set when they start a program with us, as in they want to learn more, they want to improve their financial literacy in order to run their business better and have a better financial position. Is there something there that we should be doing, do you think, to help?
Yeah, we've recognised that. Every year we produce this thing called an impact report, and we look at all of the cases that we've managed throughout the year and say, well, what are the underlying factors that led that person to give us a call? One of the highest in there is financial issues. We are helping people. It's not the nicest thing to do, but we're helping people go bankrupt because that's aware of the financial position, and it hasn't got the stigma that used to be attached to going bankruptcy. We're helping people with debt management as well to make sure that they actually plan their way out of the debt if they've got a position to plan their way out of the debt. But I say one of the things that we have identified as one of the biggest factors that people phone us up is, and then when you look at what has happened, then they've just had no idea of how to manage their own financial position. What's good debt? What's bad debt? That sort of type thing to go through. So we've already launched a series of lunch and learn courses which are free. They cover resilience, stress management, work-life balance, mindfulness, and an interesting one which is meditation for construction. Yes. Those are already out there. They are freely available. You can go onto our website, register for them, and we run them on a regular basis. They're 45 minutes to an hour, instructor-led. It's not just watching something on the screen. They are live and they're instructor-led. We are developing two as a consequence of this work we're doing. One is financial management, which we'll be launching probably in the next 2 months, free of charge as well. And another one is employability, because what we see is, obviously with the redundancies that are happening, let's face it, they are happening as a consequence of the current issues. We just want to make sure that people have the right skills to be able to put their own CVs together, to be able to interview techniques and all this sort of type thing. So again, that will be another free course. So those two free lunch and learn courses will be added to our lunch and learn program probably within the next 6 weeks to 8 weeks as well. So it's just getting them out there.
Fantastic. And my last question, Bill, is do you have any general guidance that we can all adopt to help somebody that we feel might be struggling?
Yeah, I've got my own little three golden nuggets, I call them, that if everybody in the world adopted these three little golden nuggets, it would be a wonderful place. And the very first one comes from the Samaritans. It's asked twice. Ask twice. So if you see somebody struggling, and I think everybody's got some sort of antennae to see that somebody is probably not in a good place, it's so easy to just go, are you all right? And you just walk straight past. You don't even listen for the answer. You just walk straight past. My message there is ask twice. So stop and ask again. Are you sure you're all right? I'm concerned about you. Are you all right? And you might get a different answer the second time round. That segues quite nicely into the second golden nugget. And this comes from a guy who, books I read probably maybe 10, maybe more years ago, a guy called Dr. Stephen Covey. And his book on principle-centric leadership is one that I particularly liked. And his little thing was seek to understand before you seek to be understood. Again, big learning here. How quickly do we jump down on somebody? When somebody comes to us with a problem, you're immediately either trumping their problem with a better problem that you've got and telling them not to worry about it, which is a good one, or you're immediately jumping to solving the problem for them as well, and you haven't fully understand the problem. And so many times, and one of the things you get with the mental health awareness course is being able to understand that somebody else's problem is seen through their lens, not through your lens. You've got a completely different background and understanding to the problem that they have absolutely got a problem, even although you, in your lens, doesn't think that's such a big problem. It's a big problem to them. And it's about seeking to understand before you seek to be understood. And the third one is my favourite. It comes from the Dalai Lama, and it's always be kind. There is absolutely no reason to be unkind to another human being. And even if you have to tell that other person something that's difficult to say, you can do it in a way that respects them and doesn't make them feel really bad. Even if you have to let people go from a project, saying the project's closing down, I'm sorry, you can't be with us. You can say, stuff to help them rather than to make it a very big issue for them. It's going to be a big enough issue with them trying to find another role without making it a very difficult departure as well. So even in situations that are very difficult, always be kind. And if those 3 little golden nuggets were done by everybody, very difficult to do all the time. But if they were, it would be very helpful to the culture across the globe.
So true. Empathy, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we're talking about, being empathetic. So ask twice, seek first to understand, and always be kind. So brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for coming on the show today. It really has been enlightening, and I know will be of real interest to many of our listeners. Where can they go to find out more about the charity?
Okay, there's a couple of places to get access to support. Then it's the best thing to do is download the app, which is to go to either the Android or the Apple Store and download Construction Industry Helpline app. And in there, you will find all the numbers of everything in there. And if you want to find a little bit more about our charity, it's www.lighthouseclub.org.
Okay, fabulous. Well, thank you very much once again. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you today.
And for me too. Thanks, Alison.
I really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Please do share on social media. And if you'd like to learn more, head over to my website, www.evolveandgrowcoaching.com, where you'll find more details and also my book, Build and Grow, which is available on Amazon. Finally, you can also support the show by writing a review and subscribing on iTunes.